Good morning. This is Booked with Beth, and I am Beth Hildenbrand. And today we have a very special guest who I have been trying to get on this show for a very long time, Mr. Paul Rushworth Brown. And I have read his book, Outback Odyssey, which is just getting rave reviews. And I'm going to hand the show over to Paul and let him tell us a little bit about himself.
Hi, Beth. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Yeah. Look, I don't like speaking about myself very much. This is my fourth novel. I think Outback Odyssey is sort of like I suppose, to give you a bit of a background. We had a referendum over here in Australia, back in 2023, and it was the right for First Nations people to actually have a say in Parliament, and so Outback Odyssey is sort of like first reading it. If you don't read between the lines, if you read above them, it's a historical fiction, romance novel. But if you read between the lines, it's an allegorical. I suppose there's a lot of allegorical symbolism, which basically presents some of the issues that we are having over here in Australia with regards to reconciliation and accepting First Nations people into our nation.
Well, I very much enjoyed the book. It was fascinating to me because I don't know much about Australia. And wow, I learned a lot. And I love a book where I can enjoy the story and learn something at the same time.
Yeah.
So it rang all the bells for me. It really did.
I think it's my like without being bragging or anything, I think it's my best work, and I think it's got deep meaning. It's got deep meaning, and I think my other three novels, they're good sort of like historical fiction, adventure, romance type novels, but this one really means something, and I think it's special.
Well, according to the reviews you've got, other people think so too. An epic journey, captivating tale of adventure and ancient heritage. I mean, you've got some big review titles out there. And having read it myself, wow, I was impressed. It makes me want to go back and read your other novels, certainly. And it's adapted into a screenplay even. So congratulations there.
Thank you.
I was definitely taken in and drawn into this book. It was very well written. The characters were terrific. And it's just, well, it's an odyssey. It really is. It's right there in the title. You did an incredible job with this book. You really did.
Yeah.
You said you wanted to read us a little. I would love to hear some.
Yeah. So I'm going to, this sort of like first act, because it's basically about a for your viewers that sort of like don't really know the story. It's the story. If we forget about the allegorical concepts and that type of thing, it's a story of a young man, 18 years old, that spent most of his childhood in an orphanage, and then obviously turning 18. This is sort of like back in Australia, or then back in England, back in the 1950s. And when he turned 18, obviously they kicked him out of the orphanage. And he tried to join the armed services to make his father proud, and he didn't make it because he was too short. So his next, at that point, obviously both his parents were, they died when he was about 12, loosely based on my father's life, to be honest. So he says to himself, well, I'm going to try and get to Australia. So back then in the 50s, they had this, the Australian government put out this scheme called the, it was the migration scheme to sort of like, to get as many Brits as they could over to Australia, to keep Australia British. And anyway, I mean, that's another. I mean, the book is almost like 3 stories. You know, this is sort of like the first part. Anyway, to make a long story short, he comes to Australia. He goes through all the indoctrination of living in a hostel and being tested for various diseases and all that type of thing. And that doesn't include the trip over, the month trip over here in the book. On the boat. Anyway, so when he gets to Australia, after sort of like going through all the process, they send him out to the outback to work on a sheep station, and there he basically falls in love with the country, which in the book is actually another character, and he First Nations elder takes him under his wing and basically teaches him about the outback and how to survive in the outback, the spirits of the outback, and I don't want to give too much away, so we'll just leave it there, and I'll just read this excerpt. All right. So in this excerpt, we find Jimmy on the deck of the RMS Orient, right, which was one of the big ships that took immigrants from London through Colombo, through the Suez Canal to Melbourne back in those days. And he sort of like has a moment of quiet reflection. It's the beginning of a journey, and he's basically leaving his whole life that he'd known up till then behind. So Jimmy stared at the RMS Orient, a floating marvel on the brown murky waters of the River Thames, Australia's main emigration point. Its colossal shape dwarfed other floating craft. Moored nearby, from his reading, her corn-coloured hull and white upperworks featured promenade decks, sliding glass doors, and sliding walls. He was impressed by the sight of the enormous smokestack and one colossal mast. The interior was bathed in chromium and adorned with bakelite fittings. She exuded a sense of airiness and spaciousness. As Jimmy embarked, the ship groaned, and the hum of the engines reverberated through the decks. The mooring ropes squealed their displeasure as they strained against the bollards. The creak of timber and the scream of foghorn sounded a warning to passengers, families, and loved ones dockside as they waved and shouted their goodbyes. While walking to the port side, Jimmy waved, not to his loved ones, but to England.
That's a good moment.
Yeah, it's sort of like it almost makes, for me writing this novel, it was because I was born in England, and I didn't, my father left to come to Australia when I was about 9, and I didn't see him again until I was 18.
Wow.
So writing that part of the novel, obviously it's that part of it is very loosely based on my father, but obviously fictionalized. But it was a bit of a sad thing to write for me. So like I suppose stepping into my father's footsteps and I suppose living the something similar to the adventure that he would have taken back when he was 18.
So you said it's loosely based on your father.
Yeah.
Now, the father thing brings to mind a question about the book. In the book, Jimmy receives a letter at the end. Is there going to be a part 2?
No, you'll have to wait and see, Beth.
Because, okay, you left left it there. You left it
Yeah, I
there
did.
for me to wonder.
Yeah,
And so, yeah. Okay. If
yeah,
there is, you got to let me know because
yeah,
that I had that question,
yeah.
burning
Well,
in my brain.
I
Okay. Is there going to be a part two? Is this going to come up in part two?
well, my other three books, that was part of a trilogy. So, um, uh, I suppose it depends on how, I suppose, the readers and the public, how they come to terms with this one. If it's my fourth novel, if I suppose if there's sort of like uh, if people seem to like it, and I think they will, because I think it's I think it's a book that has a number of dimensions that readers and people like. So if I see that people like Outback Odyssey, yeah, there might be a second one.
I would like to see a second one.
Yeah. Well,
Pardon the coughs, allergies.
yeah. How do you think? What do you think where do you think the second one would go? Because I sort of like left that letter
Yes, you
from
did.
yeah, that
Yes, you
letter.
did.
Yeah.
I don't want to give it away,
No.
but I could see something arriving on the doorstep like, surprise.
Well, to be honest with you, that surprise was me in real life.
And I was wondering, that's what, when you said that, I was like, okay. Yeah, that's what made me think of it. Because when I read the book, and I kept thinking the whole way through, that was kind of left open there. And I wonder if we're going to see this, at some point. And then when I saw the letter at the end of the book, I was like, okay, now I have to wonder.
Yeah.
And then when you see the letter and you think, okay, is there going to be a part two to this? There's got to be a part two to this because, we saw this. Okay.
Yeah.
And now everybody's going to wonder what the hell I'm talking about, but I can't give it away. I refuse to give spoilers. Even in my reviews, I will not give spoilers. Yeah. And this one's getting a big 5 stars, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would love to see you do something with that in the future.
I mean, there's some real sort of like crucial and poignant parts to that novel, from not only a personal point of view, but for also I suppose because Australia is going through this time at the moment where we're as a nation, we're like really trying hard to I suppose go through that reconciliation period, but it's so difficult because I suppose some people are hesitant. I think they're scared, and through the research that I did for this novel, and also spending a lot of time in the outback over a number of years. I mean, when I first came to Australia, I hitchhiked all through the outback when I was about 19. Slept at the side of the road. You can't do it anymore, but stood on top of Uluru, which is the new word for Ayers Rock, and spending, even worked out in the outback. I was a navvy on the railways, and we used to replace all the broken down tracks, in 50-degree heat. So I was very in tune with what was going on out there.
That's fabulous. Your story kind of reminds me of the Native American story here in the States. Not one treaty was kept with the Native Americans here in the United States, not one. And it's disheartening to see how they were treated, and still are to this day.
Yeah. Well, one of the main points that comes through the novel in a very delicate way. I mean, the novel, I think, doesn't preach. It just goes through its fiction, it goes through its romance, it goes through its cultural First Nation aspects, but it doesn't preach about anything. But one of the main points that does come out in a very, very subtle way is the story about the stolen generation. And Americans probably don't know about that, but what happened back in sort of like the, from about I think it was like the late 1800s to later on in the up until the sort of like early sort of like 20th century, is that Aboriginal children were taken away, or sorry, I shouldn't use the word Aboriginal, we use the word First Nations now, but First Nations children were taken away from their family and actually put into hostels and church orphanages to basically make them white. They weren't allowed to speak their language. They weren't allowed to use their own First Nations names that their parents had given them, and because of that, and what a lot of people outside Australia don't know, or even in Australia they don't know, is that First Nations in Australia, people just call First Nations people, or they used to call them Aborigines, right? But Australia was actually broken up into 1,000 different countries, and every First Nations nation had its own country, right? So some of those nations would speak different language, they'd have different customs, they'd have a whole different cultural background.
I learned that from your book.
Yeah.
I did. I didn't know that either. So yeah, I learned a lot reading your book. I enjoyed that. Mm. So we have questions here. Yep. If you could meet any of your characters, what question would you ask them?
Ooh, probably the antagonist, Derek, right, who is Amanda's uncle. I'd basically say, I mean, obviously he had mental health issues, right, and that's sort of like another strong theme that sort of like comes out in the novel, and which is a sort of like a real issue out in rural areas in Australia, especially among young men. I would ask him, why didn't you seek help? And of course they didn't back then. Why did you treat your niece so poorly? Why did you? Why couldn't you just support her and be part of her life? I have to be careful not to give too many hints away.
It's always the uncles. I'll tell you what. Uncles are always the rotten ones. I don't know why, but it always seems to be that way.
Yeah.
In real life, anyway, it always seems to be the uncles. And I wanted to ask you about Mr. Olson.
Yeah.
He was like my favorite character in this book. I don't know why, or at least one of my favorite characters, but I loved how he was with Tommy on the ship.
Jimmy.
Timmy, yes, I'm sorry. I'm just, like I said, I'm all 6s and 7s, got my head in a book. Just the way they interacted.
Yeah.
And he was my son. You have to, the bathroom is on the other side of my office. You got to go through. Everybody's used to Matthew appearing on the shows. Just the interaction between those two characters, I really enjoyed that. He was he was almost like a mentor to him during that period.
Yeah.
And, just showed him that there were things beyond what he knew during that time.
Yeah.
It was, I don't know. I just really enjoyed that part of the book.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I enjoyed the whole book, but there was something special about that time between the two of them.
Yeah. Because, I mean, at that point, Jimmy was actually quite ignorant about Australia. He knew nothing about it, and I think through the conversations that they had, I think it was a good way to sort of like explain, for Mr. Olsen to explain to Jimmy, and through their conversations, explain what Australian people were like, the idea of like the emu and the kangaroo, that they couldn't walk backwards, and and especially the land. I mean, the land was probably the character that I love writing. I mean, it's really a person, not a person, but it's a definite character, and it plays such an important part in that in the novel.
And I love how you say that the land was a character, because it really was.
Yeah,
And you really brought that out in the book. And like when he goes to the to do his thing and become a part of the, what you called it, a mob.
yeah. So mob's like a tribe.
Yes, that's something else I learned.
Yeah.
And he just kind of gives himself over to it, and you learn that the land is its own being.
Yeah.
It is its own person.
Yeah.
And
well,
I just love how you did that. It was something special.
Yeah, well, to First Nations people, every rock, every tree, every animal is a part of the land, and it's almost like, and so like going back to the stolen generations, when they took those young kids from their home, from their country, it's almost like taking, I suppose, a Catholic person or a Christian person away from their church. That's how it's like how they hold the land and the rocks and the streams and the rivers and the animals. It's they all have they're all tied to the dreaming, and they're all tied to their culture, and all very heavily tied to their being.
I'm fascinated by this. I'm going to have to keep reading about this now. You have me hooked. You really do. I'm going to have to go to Australia. Me, who won't get on a plane, but someday maybe I'll be able to get myself drunk enough to get on a plane. It's the only way you're going to get me to do it. I don't know if you've noticed, but planes just keep falling out of the air here in the States. Oh. It seems like once a week an airplane is falling down from the sky over here. Oh. So yes, I have refused to get on planes now. But if I ever do, I'm coming your way.
Yeah, there's lots of things that can kill you over here as well.
I've seen that. Yes, I have. I interviewed one girl, almost had her head snapped off by an alligator or a crocodile. Crocodile, yeah. Yes. It's crocodiles over there.
Alligators are tame compared to our crocodiles.
That's what I've heard. Yeah. I'll tell you what. Don't want to meet up with one of those. No. Yeah, I'll have to have you as a guide when I come. Okay, just keep me away from bitey things, please. I heard you have lots of things that bite over there.
Yeah, lots of snakes.
Well, snakes, I'm not too. I can handle the snakes. We've got some bad ones here, and I've handled that. I've chopped the heads off a few copperheads around here with a shovel already. I'm pretty good with snakes, but the other bitey things, no.
Oh, the spiders, that size.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I'm pretty cool with most things, but no great big no. Woo, okay. Okay, yeah, don't like the big things. Okay, so now we have to talk about, you are one of the decade's most important historical works, this was called.
Was it?
Yes, I got that out of your press kit.
Yeah.
I read things, I do.
Yeah.
And
to
I
be
have
honest with
to
you,
agree with that. I
yeah,
do. I really, this was a fascinating book to me.
yeah, yeah. I'm, I mean, it's my fourth novel, and you know, I know there's been reviews done, but to be honest with you, I don't pay much attention to them.
You don't read your own press, huh?
No, I try not to. Try not to.
I forget most of what's said about me, to be quite honest.
Yeah,
It's like I try to, I don't take it in.
yeah,
Yeah, good or bad. I just keep going and do my thing.
yeah.
Um, I just
My my
enjoy the
my,
writing.
my daughter is my publicist, so she sort of like takes care of all that and writes the articles and puts the press kit together and the pitch deck for the screenplay and that.
Well, she does a fabulous job. She
Yeah, I
really
think she
does.
does. She hasn't been doing it for very long, but it's definitely something she's she's taken it by the horns, and yeah, she's uh, really enjoying it, and puts her whole heart and soul into it.
Good for her because she does an excellent job. I'm very impressed by her.
Hmm. She's only 25 as well.
And she's gorgeous too. I've seen her picture. She's
Yeah,
gorgeous.
yeah. Takes after her mother. Doesn't
Well,
take
you're a
after.
lucky man then. Two pretty ladies for you.
Yeah. Oh, I've got another one as well.
Oh, well,
I've got I've got two daughters and one son.
wow.
Yeah.
Nice
So
family.
my Haley's my youngest daughter. Then Chris is my middle son, and then Rachel, she's the eldest, and she's a lawyer. She lives up in Queensland. Just made me a grandfather not too long ago.
Oh, isn't that great? I have a 5 month old grandson now. I have five boys.
Oh, really?
Yes, yes. I had five sons.
There must have been hell.
Whew. It was like the World Wrestling Federation in my living room most days. I'll tell you
Yeah,
what. But I loved every minute of it. Now I only have one left at home, and it's like it's too quiet around here.
yeah, yeah. I saw him run past.
Yeah, oh, yeah. And then when he's in school, it's like, well, okay, what do I do with myself? I guess I'll write a book. Nothing else to
Yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'm a teacher by trade, so I suppose that's more these days. It's more of my hobby. Writing is my career.
Oh, yeah. I enjoy writing. It's
So I've got
it's
another excerpt if
yes.
you'd like
Oh, yes,
to.
please. Yes, please.
Yeah,
Here we are talking about
they're
babies.
they're
So,
only short, and I've got about what I did is I took about three or four very small passages from the book in different parts. So this one is basically Jimmy's arrived in Australia and is being guided by his First Nations elder. Um, and in Australia, if there's an elder, we call them auntie or uncle, which you probably would have picked up from the
mhm.
novel. So his uncle Jarrah, and using the word uncle or auntie is more out of sort of like respect. Obviously, they're not real uncles and aunties. And this scene shows how Outback Odyssey honors First Nations culture and how Jimmy learns to listen to country, right, and its spirits. So the men gathered around, wrapped in possum skin cloaks, and started to chant. Jarrah mixed ochre and animal fat and painted a curved line like a wallaby's tail on his forehead. The wallaby is your totem and will always walk with you, Jarrah said with his gravelly voice. Jimmy thought of Jen Lee, the injured wallaby he had rescued. His totem was fitting. Tonight, you will see its spirit and learn its wisdom. Jarrah explained, wiping red and white ochre on his chest, representing the mob and dreamtime stories. You must remember the patterns of the painting, as they contain stories, messages, and spiritual meaning when you return to the village. The final part of the initiation will be with friends, elders, and your new family. The chanting grew louder, and the men threw eucalyptus leaves into the fire. Jimmy inhaled and closed his eyes. He felt calm, eventually entering a dreamlike state. That night, he imagined Jenny standing before him, speaking, "I am your totem, the spirit of our people, strong and in balance. From today, you carry my spirit and the duty to care for the land and all living creatures." When Jimmy opened his eyes, the fire was reduced to glowing embers. He didn't know how much time had passed, but he felt sweaty and groggy.
I loved that part. I
Did you?
did. I did. Because he saved the baby wallaby.
Yeah,
And then that became his spirit animal.
yeah,
So yes, I loved that part.
yeah.
And he was never allowed to eat wallaby or
That's right.
kill
That's
wallaby.
right.
He
Yeah,
had to protect the wallaby. Yes,
yeah,
so that was one of my favorite parts of the book.
yeah,
I was so happy when he saved the baby wallaby
yeah. But he
because
got
they
in
were out
trouble.
hunting.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. He got in trouble because the way First Nations people see it is it's all about balance, and obviously they live off the land, and if there was an opportunity to hunt a wallaby and eat it, then they take it, and it's all a cycle.
but he wanted to protect the baby.
Yeah.
That was a good part of the story. I liked that part.
So, what was your favorite part of the story? Like, you've already said that you liked Mr. Olson. I mean, I
Hmm.
Mr. Olson, he was like a character, I suppose, born out of sort of like old movies, that I used to watch. Casablanca and all that type of thing.
I would have to say my favorite part of the story is at the cave, but I
Oh,
can't say any more than that or I give too much
oh,
away.
yeah. I'll tell you something. That scene took me weeks to write because I wanted. I wrote another scene and then replaced it with that one, and then the other scene sort of like I suppose continues the possible next novel.
I think I like that scene because it really it does it brings the balance that the whole book talks about. It
Yeah,
is that scene.
yeah. And you'd never pick it, would you?
No,
No,
I
that's good.
mean it's and it ends the way I mean it brings about everything the way it should be.
Yeah,
I mean you wrote it perfectly.
yeah,
Everything just is right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I suppose in my other novels, I, the ending is usually. I'm not going to say anything more.
Yeah. See, you can't. I can't say anything and give it away. But yes, that would be my favorite part.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay, do you have another piece you want to read? Because
yeah,
we're about we're pushing
yeah.
time.
One more. Okay, so um, the the story is actually closely tied to uh, Martin Weiberg's Gold. All right, and Martin Weiberg was a carpenter working on the SS Avoca back in sort of like the early 1800s or mid 1800s, and he actually stole some Colombian sovereigns and took them off his ship and hid them. And right now to this day, there's still people in Victoria, sort of like looking for them. right? So it's a bit of a that bit's like true. And they found some of the sovereigns, but not all of them. And there's still people wandering about with with metal detectors trying to find these sovereigns in Victoria. Anyway, so this part of the novel marks the beginning of a quest, a discovery that changes everything. Amanda and Jimmy unearth a long buried secret about the gold, and the promise of treasure, mystery, and obviously the new dangers that lie ahead. And their journey begins to shift from a search for gold to something much deeper. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So basically, Amanda at this point is just confronted by her uncle, which the antagonist like wants the gold and he wants her station. So with the rifle still in her hands, Amanda stood on the veranda, the rain pouring on her. The storm was in a frenzy, and she watched it stampede across the land. Her father's words were in her head. She inhaled deeply and made the storm's energy hers. This was her land now, her legacy. To try to take it off me, you bastard. The next day, Amanda rose early, stood on the veranda looking at the sunrise, and felt hope for the first time. Her uncle's threats had not disappeared, but she knew more than before that she was strong enough to meet him head on if need be. As she looked at the beauty of the outback, its fierce and unyielding spirit, she felt a faint smile tugging at her lips. It was spirit she shared, a resilience forged by the land itself.
That's
Strong
a
woman.
good part. Yes, she
Strong woman.
is. She
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
She was a great character. I mean, she was given a heavy burden, but also she loved her burden, and she wouldn't have traded it for anything in the world.
Yeah.
Because she loved every bit of it.
Yeah.
It was life to her, basically,
Yeah.
because like you said, it was land,
Yeah.
and she loved the land,
Yeah.
and she was determined. She was a very determined woman,
I
and
like. I'll be honest. I like that that sort of like little connection with Nagara, the First
mhm.
Nations old woman. I'm not going to say any more because I don't want to, I don't want to give it away.
I know it's so hard, right?
Mm.
I have this problem all the time on the show, keeping my mouth shut, trying to say what I want to say without giving things away. That's why I sit here and babble like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that the storm and gives the perfect description of her feelings at that moment, and just the determination she has that she is going to succeed, and
Yeah.
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 Now, Margie is here, and she says, I'm squinting now. Sorry, I lost my good glasses. Hi, Paul. You may have answered this before I got here, but I'm wondering if you plot out what's going to happen in your books from beginning to end, or do your characters change nebulous plans as you write?
No, great question. But when I write, it's just like a movie, sort of like just occurring in front of my eyes, right? So I don't plan anything. I mean, even the characters, their names I make up as I go along, and I see this movie sort of like taking place in front of my eyes, and all I'm doing is transferring, this movie that's in my head onto paper. So no, I don't plan anything. I might change a lot. I might change things and take things out, put other things in. Um, I've been known to I've been known to change the ending a fair bit in the past. I remember a funny story. I gave I had a book signing at one of the big stores over here, And my wife told this anecdote about I gave her the copy of it was Dream of Courage, my last novel, and she sort of like told the story of how I gave her the book to read, and she finished it, and then we were speaking about it, and I said, "Oh no, 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 no! That the ending's changed since then." so,
Oh, that's a good one.
yeah, so I'm being interviewed by this radio personality, and she had she was obviously a lot more funny about it than I was, and she had everybody in stitches.
She says that's how she writes too. She
Yeah,
watches the movie in her head.
yeah, yeah,
That's how I do it too. I never know what's coming till I get there.
yeah, and it's such a lovely way to write because it's I mean you're almost living in that world. It's almost like you're a god, sort of like making decisions and changes in the characters' lives.
Sometimes I feel like they're making changes in my life.
Yeah,
It's like, okay, thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. Or it'll be like, okay, I'm just sitting there writing, and all of a sudden I'll look, and it's like, hey, I didn't even see that coming. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's a
yeah,
whole lot better than what I could have come up with.
yeah,
Yeah, they just kind of take over for you. Or you'll be, sitting there having supper, and something will just pop into your head, and it's like, oh my God, I can't believe I came up with that. That's the greatest thing ever.
yeah.
So yeah, it's nice doing things that way, I think. So we're going to have to wrap this up because I'm like way over schedule for this one, but it was so much fun.
Thanks,
So
Jeff.
when you write part 2 of this, which you're going to have to do because I have to know how that turns out. I
Just,
really
just,
do.
just for you, Beth, I will.
Thank you so much. Yay. Um, uh, Margie says, thank you both. You've helped me past a block. I was trying to force my character into a scene no one wanted to do, and they all ran off in different directions. Oh, well, you're very welcome, honey. So, yes, thank you for coming on. I have waited for this one for so long, uh, and I enjoyed
Thanks,
doing your
Beth.
show that one time. So,
Yeah,
uh,
thanks. I really appreciate it.
oh, yes, it was a pleasure to have you. And your book was just fabulous. It really was. I'm so looking forward to part 2.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're quite welcome. I'll give you, let's see, you have 1 month to come up with the next one so I can read it. How's that sound?
Outback Odyssey. I mean, it's on pre-order now, but it doesn't come out officially until the 20th of June. And it was 2 years in the making.
You're going to make me wait another 2 years. No. I forbid it. Okay, I'll stretch it to 6 months. How's that sound?
6 months.
Okay, thank you so much for being on the show. And everybody, whoops, I've lost in your plug here. We will have the amazing Susan Joyner Stumpf next Saturday. She is a wonderful poet. So I know everybody's excited about that. We'll get to hear some poetry next Saturday. Thank you again, Paul, for being here. You made my weekend. And we'll see you next weekend. If you hang on for a second after we sign off, that would be great. And we'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Love ya.